Nobody's gonna see it. All you need to know is that we're holding on.
Welcome to the Difficult Emotions Special Project Group. I am Kara Hayes. Um, I am here today with Jennifer Musser. Hi,
Hello.
Jen.
Hi, Kara.
Hi. And I'm here with Mike Mooney. Hi, Mike.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
So our topic for today is how to keep an open heart in times of conflict. So this has been coming up for all three of us, and we thought we'd bring something to you today. In a recent chat with the three of us, Jen and Mike had a bit of their own conflict, and we all came together. We brought it to the team. We wanted to see how we could work through it. And maybe one of you want to start out and give us a little bit of background on what happened.
Okay, so since I'm the one that kind of brought it to to light, I'm going to start. So some feelings were kind of coming up in me, and I just want to say that the way that I would have reacted before I did some of this work is completely different than the way that I did react, and because of that, the outcome was completely different. So I just want to remind people why we do this work, because it really does change lives, and it deepens relationships. In the past, I probably would have shut down. My heart would have closed. I would have gotten hurt feelings, which I did have hurt feelings, but I still had the hurt feelings. But when I had them, instead of shutting down, letting my heart close, turning away, I made a point to just like let my heart open up. And I just brought it to light, and I kind of told Mike how I felt and gave him an opportunity to respond. So the first thing I just want people to know is that we have to stop making up stories, our own stories, whenever we get hurt, right? Because the first thing that we do when we get hurt is say, and I'll just give you the example that happened. So Mike was not responding to text messages in a timely manner, in my opinion. All right. And so I started telling myself that Mike didn't care. Mike had other priorities that were more important, and I wasn't a priority to him. And in the end, Mike doesn't love me. So all of those stories I told myself, and none of which were true. So Mike, I'll give you a chance to say how you kind of your perspective sort of what happened.
So that's your side of the story. So no, I mean, Jen, you're absolutely right. And those of you listening, what we're talking about here is, the three of us we're friends, and we actually chat like this, periodically. Just having our own like little check-in with each other, and we hadn't been in touch, and I know that Jen, you were reaching out to me, and Kara too, reaching out to me, and I wasn't responding maybe the way I would typically respond. And I think sometimes, when it comes to even text messages, like, we get into patterns with people where we kind of know when they generally respond back. And if they don't, we go, what's going on? Like, I haven't heard from this person. And it's different for everyone, there's no right or wrong there. And I hadn't responded back. And Jen, first of all, she was actually very loving about it. She asked me what was going on with me, and I thought that was like a good way of like a good indicator that she understood there was more to the story than what was going on in her head, whatever the story was. Then she told me how she felt, and in the past, I would have gotten very defensive, almost like felt it as an attack. And it's so interesting because I didn't at all. And I wanted to actually unpack some of like what happened in my head, even though it wasn't even like a long conversation, but it was enough that I think it was important, because how many times in life are we in a conflict with someone where it just ends bad? Like, we don't even want to run to confrontation because we avoid it, like, generally, and so I think that what was good about this that was different from old Mike, we'll call it old Mike and new Mike 2.0, was that old Mike would have been reactive and threatened. And a lot of times when someone would confront me or say something I didn't like or want to hear, I would take that as an attack. I would actually connect it with my own self-worth. If I wasn't getting good feedback, something's wrong here, you know, and we all think in our heads we're doing the right thing and going about things our way's the right way, right? And so I realized though that, first of all, I needed to listen to Jen because she's my friend and I love her. And I wanted to give her that space to talk. So I made it a point to not focus on my own story, but to listen and internalize her story from her perspective, not making her wrong at all in my head, just trying to see it. And it was really nice because, as she's telling me the story, I'm thinking in my head the whole time, like, well, I would have felt exactly the same way. Like there's nothing I could say, against it. And so what was really nice was the fact, and this is where I kind of wanted to start with a solution for those of you out there who have to deal with conflict, was how I came into the situation. I didn't come in with the shields up, ready to fight. I didn't come in like that. And oftentimes in life, when somebody has to have a talk with us, or I've got something on my mind is coming at you, you get right to what you got, and so I came into it with like, no, Jen's got something on her mind and she loves me enough to tell me. So I felt it was my duty to listen to her. And the other thing that I did was I did my best to make it a point to let her know that I understood. I tried to just really like clarify back again, it's not about me and what's going on. And ultimately, we realized that, I just been a little bit overwhelmed and gotten, too overwhelmed with text messages, what's happened sometimes. But you know what, that doesn't matter. It was still an opportunity for me to say, well, where can I do better? And also on a deeper level, I said to myself, Jen's the one person that brought this up. Who else is not saying anything about this in my life? So it's like, so I think what was beautiful about it was that there wasn't a fight. I didn't feel ill feelings towards Jen for bringing it up. I didn't feel threatened by it, but it was because I came into the conversation with love. This is not about your ego. This is about caring about this person that you love.
Yeah, and obviously, we're two people who are sort of working on ourselves, and so it was a little easier to resolve that conflict. Now, you might be in a situation where maybe you're working on yourself, and the other person on the other side of the conflict isn't. Kara, have you ever had a situation like that, or Mike?
Yeah, I think I've definitely had experiences of real conflict. And in my mind, I guess I'm thinking of one from a few years ago. I something that stands out for me was, I think it was a surprise to be called into a conversation with a peer, and I think I was surprised by it. But in the moment, I thought, well, it's probably best to talk about it. It's probably best that we connect and talk about what's going on. And I did in myself experience, I wanted to like shut down and be like, it felt natural to want to be defensive. And because this wasn't a person that I had a loving friendship with, this was a peer from a professional setting. And so I thought, I noticed in myself wanting to shut down. I noticed a little bit of fear of like, what's coming. I don't know what to expect from this conversation. And ultimately, I remember just sort of taking a few breaths and trying to make space for what might come up. And I noticed in the moment, I remember noticing in the moment, surprise about what I might learn about myself from this conversation, even if I feel like myself that they're not interested in. This felt more like maybe they were being manipulative. I felt like, this wasn't coming from a place within them where they wanted to change. More felt like they wanted to let me know something about myself. So I decided to make room for that. Like, what is it? Maybe there's something I can learn about myself. And ultimately, I left the situation, number one, learning something about myself, but also learning a little bit about them underneath sort of what was underneath all of their experience. Like, as we spoke for hours and hours, it felt we got down to a point of like, they just wanted to be heard and they actually were looking for connection. Maybe they didn't want to learn more about themselves, but they were trying to be seen and heard, which was really, I think, an important thing. And I ultimately left feeling like I had more faith in the process of talking to each other. I had more faith in like what we could do in a longer term, in our relationship, even if it wasn't a deep, loving relationship, there was something that could come out of that. Like we could maybe find a way to talk sooner and hear about what's going on sooner. So my understanding was, yeah, this person's rigid and it's somewhat manipulative, and I don't think there's any real reason for me to sit in a room with them. And I'm nervous. I don't want to be around this. And ultimately, under all of that, maybe these were ways for them to cope and to relate. Maybe this is how they knew how to relate. But talking and really working at maintaining an open mind, open heart was what got us to sort of work through some of that. So yeah, it's tough work. Conflict is not fun for anyone, and sometimes it's harder when it's a loving relationship. How do we make room to hear each other and have faith in each other that we can that conversation could move something, that we can learn something. So.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that, Kara. You said some gold right there. Gold, gold, gold. When you do this kind of work in a conflict, come into it with an open heart and just, I guess, persevere through it and really just stay focused on that, you restore faith in the process. You increase your faith in this process. So that's something really important, that if you've never done this before and you're watching this and thinking, okay, yeah, great if it works for them. Yeah, that's not possible in the real world. Well, it's not a one and done thing. It's a process that we're, constantly doing it and working with. The other thing, Kara, that you said that I thought was important, or actually what you didn't say, is you didn't say you were trying to change the other person. And I think that's so important, because how many times are we in a conflict and we just want the other person to change? If only they would change, that's that would resolve this. And I think that's a really important thing that I'm having to learn, not to try to change other people, and this is it's and I'm saying this especially being a man, and us men, I'm not saying women aren't like this, we have our own special thing with control and power and stuff like this. So I come from a culture, even family wise, of men who like to convince people that they need to blank. And I always jokingly say that, and if my family is watching this, you know what I'm saying, and you can confront me about it, I don't care. But basically, when I sometimes sit with my family, it's like I'm sitting around a table of experts. They all know it all and want to just change to a certain thing. But I think, Kara, what you said is just so important for this type of thing, that number one, again, it restores faith or increases faith in the process. When you do it, you don't need to change the other person.
Mhm.
Love that.
Yeah.
I also love that. I love, because she said she was trying to see them, and I think that was powerful for them too, I'm sure, because not a lot of people don't do that. Obviously, if they were reaching out and trying to be seen and heard, they weren't feeling seen and heard. So it takes somebody who's doing work on themselves to give that to other people, and just you having done this work is having a ripple effect, whether you know it or not. I think on other people and around us, so you're right, it's not all we've got to fix them. So I think that's you guys both made some really good points.
Yeah, I find it interesting too. I think as I do more and more in this work, I think people become more than these sort of three-dimensional or two-dimensional, they're only there's some sort of misconception that we have that people are one thing, that there's no depth to where they could go with things. And I don't think we intend to do that. I think there's this they'll never change, or this topic will never sort of shift for us. And so we don't speak, right? We don't bring it forward. We don't speak. And then there's also this oh gosh, if I bring it forward, I'm going to hurt them with this. This is going to hurt. And so I'll just hold it, right? And rather than us sort of hit the battleground, and explode each other with all these bombs of things, I'll withhold. And I think that is more wounding. I think that can be more wounding, the silence, the not speaking. It doesn't go away. You sort of bury it. But it is more wounding. It stays between us. And so whether it's a peer or if it's someone you live with, a partner, or a work partner, it's really important to try to find a way to bring that forward. I think that's the sort of lesson here is I feel closer after I say something to the person that I work with, I care about. I feel closer once we can be seen and heard. And there's another little piece for me too that I thought I'd bring up. There's something I'm learning more recently about conflict and bringing something forward is sort of, yes, trusting that we can both maybe learn from this and we can both see each other. But I'm learning to let go of the need for people to respond in a certain way. So it's like, okay, I've said something. My intention was to sort of bring us closer, to clear the air. It might only be my perception. This may not be true for you, but this is what I'm feeling is what's coming forward for me. I'm bringing it to you so we can work through this and bring ourselves closer. And I'm also learning to let go of like where that goes once I put that out there. That may not land well for the other person.
So
That's the bigger work for me right now.
are you kind of saying like you're sort of letting go of any expectations of their reaction to you?
They may or may, their responses in there and how it lands in them is sort of, it's not within my control, and it wouldn't be a natural process if I decided how that went for them. So that's the work I'm still doing. It's okay. It's okay that this may bring up some anger. This may be rejected. This may not, go somewhere for them too. It may not always resolve. It may be something that isn't held very well by the other person. So.
Yeah, and I think also letting go of our expectations of that person's reaction is going to take, pain away from us in a way, because, we're not going to be disappointed, right? We just, have to kind of be open to whatever their reaction might be.
Yeah.
I said it. Speaking of expectations, did I ever tell the two of you the picking your nose story? All right, I'm going to bring it up right here now. It's really important, actually. So let's just say it's a hypothetical story. This is not a real story, okay? Let's just say Jen and I were getting coffee every Friday. We decided that we're living near each other. We're going to get coffee. I could totally see me doing that with both of you, three of you, but Jen and I. So we go to Starbucks, and every time we sit down, we always have a good conversation. But I have a tendency to just start like picking my nose, and Jen, who loves me, wants me to be me, is just like getting a little grossed out by it, so we keep going to coffee, and she's really getting bothered. So she goes to Kara, and Kara, she says to you, I love getting coffee with Mike, but he won't stop picking his nose. Like, what do I do? And so Kara will say to Jen, probably just tell him how you feel, right? Do the whole, I feel uncomfortable when you pick your nose. So the next time we get to coffee, Jen and I sit down, and we're drinking the coffee, and Jen sees my finger going up, and she goes, wait, Mike, we got to talk. And she says, I feel uncomfortable when you pick your nose. And at first I might be a little shocked, right? If I have an addiction, I might need to sit on my hands. But here's the thing. I'm going to appreciate that she said it. I might have all sorts of other feelings, but one feeling I'm definitely going to have is, why didn't you tell me in the first place? And a lot of times when we don't immediately run to conflict and let it just build up, it actually breeds distrust. So one of the things that I've learned about conflict is part of coming to it with an open heart is going to it quickly, like right at the beginning. And this way, even if it's like a Band-Aid getting ripped off, it actually builds trust, because that person can know also what to expect from you, and you're very, very clear. And just for the record, to those of you watching, I do not pick my nose when I get coffee with people. I don't have an addiction, but I just wanted to put that out there as an example.
I've never seen Mike pick his nose, so that's not the issue. But
Something else has gotten in the way, right? So it's important to, I love that you brought that up, because I think also that's something that doesn't happen right away in relationships. So sometimes you have this explosion of like what wasn't working or what is in the way, and then you learn together to like how to bring things to each other, which is that's wonderful. I think that's really good.
I think this was great. I think there's a lot of takeaways here today, and I'm just going to summarize a few and go around to ask the two of you what you think. I mean, something that I got from this is that, first of all, running to conflict is okay. Like, it happens, and it doesn't have to be messy. It doesn't have to be ugly, and it's not dependent on the other person. It's actually you in how you go into the situation. That's like the big thing that I got from this. And I also want to publicly say, Jen, thank you for approaching our conflict with love and confronting me. And you're always welcome to bring up whatever both of you are to me. So that's what I got. What about the both of you?
I love it. Thank you, Mike, for listening, because that made it so much easier for me, not only for this issue, but for other encounters that I'm gonna have. And I most certainly will have other conflicts. And you said this before, Mike, but this is definitely conflict is an opportunity, and we have to start to see it that way. It's an opportunity for growth, for personal growth. It's an opportunity for deeper communication, deeper connection. And so we're right, we shouldn't run from it. It's absolutely paramount. And it could be such just a beautiful thing. And instead of if we stop running from it, if we stop hiding from it and dealing with it badly, being defensive. That's all I have to say. Carol?
Yeah, I think what my takeaway is sort of, yeah, I think there's just sort of the power of learning to trust yourself and others in this. I think this is the work of confronting difficult emotions on a sort of day-to-day level. So, and ultimately it can bring people a lot closer, and it can just free you up. There's a freedom in being very direct, and that starts to feel very, very good. And yeah, it's all good. Even I think if it does get messy, I think because that's sort of where it starts. We're not always very good at neat and tidy conflict. So I think initially it can start with a big old mess, and trusting that process too is important. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for watching. Please feel free to share this video with your friends if you liked it. Maybe someone you're having a conflict with, like share this with them and then have the conversation to see if it goes any differently. And please leave a comment below. Like, let us know what you got out of this. This is really important for us to know what you're getting out of it, because it actually helps us with coming up with different content that we like to do. And thank you all for being here, and we will be back soon. Take care, everybody.